All right, folks, here we are. This is Connor Kelly, aka The Muscle from ConnorKelly.com. And I have with me here today a very special, very highly esteemed guest, Mr. John S. Rennie. How are you doing today, John?
I'm very good, Connor. Good to talk to you.
John, we're going to get into your background a little bit more, but it's an interesting mix of things that you've got going on. You're a former submarine officer during the Cold War. And John's also led 9 industrial manufacturing businesses across 4 different companies. Your current venture is called Peak Demand, and you supply a lot of the electric utilities across the country. And John's also a leadership author, right? He's got a fantastic, very inspiring book. I highly recommend you check it out. Get it today and read it. It's called I Have the Watch, and it's about becoming a leader worth following, which don't we need more of those nowadays? So, John, we're going to have a really great, honest discussion about something that's kind of a hot button topic these days, employee engagement. And how to engage your employees, because, we were just chatting a little bit off the air, and you were saying how it's such a big issue and employee engagement is so low. But are you ready to get started over there?
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right. So why don't we talk a little bit about, since you brought up the point, tell me a little bit about what the problem is, what the issue is with employee engagement right now.
Okay, sure. I think I've been in leadership positions for nearly 30 years, and one of the interesting things that has always been an issue with leadership is how do you get people actively engaged in whatever organization that you're a part of? How do you get them fired up, excited, and helping you achieve an objective, right? And so the Gallup organization, very famous organization, every year does a survey, and they look to try to measure the amount of employee engagement around countries in North America. And one thing they found consistently year after year after year is that 70% of employees are typically disengaged at work. And what's funny is that number really hasn't changed over the years. It pretty much has stayed around 70%. So the question is, what's the biggest issue there? Why are employees coming in and just, clocking in, going out? They're not feeling a desire to be involved in the business. And I think a lot of it results from, I think employees, when they first come to work, any new job, they're excited. They want to, it could be their dream job. They really want to get involved. They want to be, part of the team. And then year after year after year, they have leaders that either ignore them, don't respect their time, don't listen to their ideas, and they get frustrated, and they just said, you know what, I'm just going to do my job, keep my mouth shut, and go home. And so we take these really excited, engaged, happy employees, and we turn them into just sort of apathetic machines that just come in and stamp their time card. And we've got to get away from it. And that's a lot of the reason I wrote the book, was to say, what are some things we can do as leaders to try to draw that out of people, to get them kind of back to being excited and engaged again?
Yeah, and those are all great points. And I think, also from a leader standpoint, maybe we should talk a little bit more about, if it's not obvious, why would you want an engaged workforce? Why do you want everybody engaged with what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. Leadership, we make it complicated. There's been 15,000 books written on leadership. So, why would I write one, right? There's 15,000 books written on leadership.
Is that really the number? Wow.
Yeah, and it's a lot. But and to be honest with you, my feeling of it is that our knowledge of leadership has never been larger, but our practice of leadership is subpar, remains subpar. And I think part of it is because we forget about the simple definition of leadership, right? Leadership is about influencing a group of people to accomplish a goal. That's that simple, right? And so many leaders are forgetting about influence, they're forgetting about people, and they're forgetting about the goal, right?
Mm.
So they come into work every day and they've got their to-do list, right? I'm a manager. I've got a department of 60 people. I come into work. I've got a full email list. I'm banging out my emails because I got a 9 o'clock meeting. I run to my 9 o'clock meeting. I run to another meeting. I go out to lunch with a client, possibly. I never even see my people, right? And so we forgot about influence. My job as a leader is to influence people towards a goal. We forgot all three things. So we're too busy to lead. And so really, I'm trying to get people back in terms of the book that I've written, is just to remind people of what the role of a leader is. And if you involve people, if you're talking to them on a regular basis and you're telling them why we're going, where are we headed, why are we headed there, and what's their role in this, this journey that you're going on together, they're more likely to be excited about it, engaged, involved, and instead of just, I've never seen my boss. He hasn't been here. He hasn't been to my department in over a month. And I've had bosses where I have ran a remote plant one time and I never saw a boss for over a year. He never came to my location where my plant was. That's what leadership is turned into today. And I think we've got to change that. We've got to get back to the art of leadership and not just, people who are promoted because they're great individual contributors. You put them in, they become a manager, and then they just go back to just going to doing their daily tasks instead of focusing on, oh, I'm a manager now. I'm a leader. I'm responsible. Yes.
Yeah. So John, we've all experienced this. Obviously, we're all so busy these days, right? Mm. And that's part of the problem is it's sort of like a break fix environment. And, you sit down at your computer in the morning and you're just kind of reacting to stuff, right? And it's an really easy thing to tend to want to focus on what seems urgent versus what seems important, right? Mm. And so I think, a great place to start is, what tips do you have, maybe actionable tips that you can share in terms of, how do you sort of kick the hypnosis of that, the hypnosis of the urgent, and remember, wait a second, what's really important here? Like, why are we all doing all this in the first place? Mm-hmm. So what are your tips as far as, getting people to focus on their priorities and get that done?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, in the book, I talk about that leadership is a people business. So first of all, as a leader, you got to recognize that it is a people business, right? So there are people that work for you. You need to engage them. All right. So if you want engaged employees, you got to be an engaged leader. That's the bottom line. But the one tip I would say is, never underestimate the power of your presence. So being there, right? So physically, yeah. Pushing yourself away from your desk, right? Even if you're swamped with work, and do a walk around the workplace and just talk to people. See what's going on. How's it going today? How, did we get that one job out? Do you guys run into any problems? How are things working? Have you heard from that particular customer? How are things? So just having that regular dialogue, right? And then you get really good access to what I call just raw information. Right, because a lot of times, especially you get in a bigger organization, and I've been in charge of multiple plants and had hierarchies of management. You tend to get isolated, right? And the only information you get is filtered from all these other people who are telling you how great things are, right? And I just think as leaders, we just have to get out. We have to walk around. We have to go to where our employees work. We have to have a relationship with them. You have to have a discussion with them. They have to see you. You have to see them. You have to listen to them. I always say, when you're around an employee, you got to make it them 100% important. You can't have your cell phone. You got to turn that off. You got to put that away. You got to focus and then be present with people. And you're going to learn a lot more, and they're going to learn from you. They're like, hey, I heard you made this policy. We're going to do this. Why is that? You're like, well, let me explain it to you. And then one person hears that story, and then it gets spread out through the rest of the team. Oh yeah, I talked to John the other day, and he said the reason we're doing, cutting out the overtime is because orders are down, and and this is only a temporary thing, and so they understand the why behind some of the rules or some of the decisions that are made, and so you get away from the us and them attitude, which I see at a lot of companies I was at. It's like, okay, well that guy's a leader, he's a manager, he's in an office, he's, wearing a tie, say, and I'm out on the shop floor, I'm wearing, safety shoes. So we're us and them. And I think that, we got to get away from being the us and them. We have to be one team. Each of us have an individual role to play in the organization.
Okay. And so what would be some of your tips for how to do that? I mean, let's say, let me give you a scenario. Let's say that, you're being handed down some big objectives from above, and obviously you've got some big priorities that you've got to hit, and you don't have a lot of time to make it work, and you've got to get everybody on the same page. And right now, employee engagement is very low. Go, John. What do you do? How do you resolve that situation? How do you get them engaged?
So I always say this: if you spend a lot of time creating a plan or an objective, right, then you ought to spend twice that time getting people involved.
Interesting. Okay.
So I look at it. I go back to my Navy days, right? So when they commission a ship, it is sitting at the dock. There's a big ceremony. And then the order is given out to man the ship and bring it to life. And when that happens, there's bells and whistles, and it's all pomp and circumstance, bands playing. And then the sailors and officers run. They sprint up the gangplank into the ship. And then it's reported that the ship is manned and ready for service in the fleet. And I got to thinking about it. How many times do we think that what's important is the plan? Well, the plan is like that ship sitting in the dock, right? It is a beautiful warship, right? But it is nothing without the crew. It is basically just a hunk of cold steel in the harbor without a crew. And the thing is, our plans are that way too, right? Our goals and objectives are nothing without the people to implement it. So, one of the things I always say is that, we have got to get people on board with our plan. And the way you get on board with the plan is having these. It's a lot. I mean, I always say that, when you got to communicate, you got to do it multiple times over and over again. You've got to reinforce whatever the message is. And one of the great ways and one of the easy ways to do it is to boil down your vision or your goal into a few short words that you can use on a continual basis, right? So as you have a stand-up meeting with your employees, you just remind them, hey, remember, our goal this month is to get to, 1 million in sales. And right now we're at 600,000. Hey, great. So you're reinforcing that message. You reinforce it with an email that might come out that says, hey, remember guys, our goal this month is to get to 1 million. Here's where we're at, or give success stories. Hey, Jim got this order, which is going to help us get there. Congratulations, Jim. So you're reinforcing the positives, and you just make that part of your message. The sad thing is so many great companies have great vision and mission statements, but they're sitting in like these dusty old frames, like in their company lobby, and nobody ever looks at them. And so nobody really knows what the vision and mission is of the organization. It's got to be alive. It's got to be in the leader. The leader has to talk about it all the time. And that's how it comes to life. That's the influence part of what I was talking about earlier, influencing people towards a goal. Well, once you have a vision, a plan, you have a goal, a mission, now it's about influencing those team members to get on board with that. So,
yeah, I really resonate with what you're saying, regarding, having simple words that you repeat over and over again. Like, I think, for instance, when I used to I had a personal training studio for a while, and I had a team of trainers working for me. And we had sort of, sat down one day as a team and figured out, sort of the words that we wanted to define us as a business were commitment, inspiration, and transformation. And it ended up getting, I don't think I did this, I think the team actually, it ended up getting shortened to CIT. And so everything we talked about had to do with CIT. And then when we sit down, we have meetings, we used to always kick off the meeting with, let's get some CIT stories, which would be a story about something that happened with a customer or with a fellow team member, which has, something to do with either, commitment, inspiration, or transformation. And that just helped tremendously, because it helped the staff and the team members really take ownership of the process too. And you really did feel it sort of filter through the ranks, and then the customers experience that as well. Right?
Yeah, exactly. You bring life to that vision. You take that cold ship and you put a crew on it and you bring it to life. I think that's it. You can't just
great analogy for it. Really great analogy. Yeah.
Well, and it was like one of these days I was watching actually a commissioning of the USS Gerald Ford. It was an aircraft carrier, and as I was watching that, I was just like, wow, this is really amazing. This is a great analogy towards business. Is that we bring it to life by the people. It's not the plan. It's not the binder that we created with the plan or the the vision that's in a frame. Like you said, your example's great. You lived it every day. It was part of what you did, and it was part of your communication. So I think when you can do that in a simple way, boil down your visions into a simple way, I think it really helps everybody get on board and get excited about what they're trying to do. So they can understand. It also helps with decision makings. If you think of decision makings, think about a big organization, right? You have a lot of conflicting ways of making decisions. But if you boil it down to, well, what's our real vision here? And everybody knows that vision. Well, they'll know how to make the right decisions, because a leader can't make every decision in the business. So you want to get everybody on board with your plan so that they can make their individual decisions based on trying to come towards that, the vision that you have for the organization.
It's a great way to empower them as well. And then, you don't have to be the, sort of the go-to for every single decision that overwhelms you, I suppose, as well.
Right. You're not the gatekeeper for every decision. Right.
Yeah.
You delegate that down. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so what are some more, specific, actionable tips that, our listeners could use, in theory could use, today after this call to start getting a little bit more employee engagement?
So, I think it's, I mentioned, the power of your presence getting out there, but I also think that, celebrating employees, you just can't forget about that and the power of celebration. And so, your role, we tend to, as leaders, as managers, we tend to focus on the negatives or the challenges or the problems, right? Oh, I've got a problem employee. I've got to deal with, he's always late, or she's always, she can be rude. I've got to discuss. So we spend a lot of time with our bad employees, right? Trying to deal with this. And it's this 80-20 rule, right? And unfortunately, we're spending, 20% of employees are taking up 80% of our time, and not for the good reason. So I want you to, I try to tell people to flip the script and spend all your time, as much time as you can, with your 20% of your employees that are your great employees that are achieving great things, and really get to know them, and really reinforce what they're doing. Like, I give you an example. I have a small company that we run, manufacturing company. I went out on the shop floor the other day, and our lead mechanical engineer, most amazing engineer I've ever worked with, he's running a drill press out there on the shop floor. And which is not normal. Normally he's, designing products, but he was, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "All these parts came in wrong, and we could scrap them, but I think we could, I figured out that I could rework them, and then we can use them in production instead of scrapping them." And he said, "And everybody's busy, so I figured I'd just knock this out while I had a few minutes." And I'm like,
wow.
Thank you very much. I mean, you didn't have to do that, but I really appreciate that. And, and it's just one of those things, like, if I wasn't out there on the shop floor, if I didn't see that, if I didn't take the time to celebrate what he was doing and thank him and honor him for, going above and beyond, then you miss out on those opportunities. If you're locked away in your office, sequestered in a meeting, you're not going to get those opportunities. So, it's to get out there, see what your best people are doing, and really encourage them and celebrate them. I do a lot of things like, we do a lot of things like, we'll have picnics, we'll have family days, we have open houses. I mean, just these things. So it's not just a job. It's actually you feel more like part of a family. We bring in, every time someone has I know all my employees' birthdays, we always celebrate those. We always, people are always bringing in baked goods, and we're always, it's part of being, so it's not feeling like a job. It's feeling more like, a group of friends and family. And I think that's the atmosphere we try to create here. And I've always tried to do in the different jobs that I've been in.
It can really, make someone look forward to going to work. I think it's a really great point to what you're saying, about the, really incentivizing and recognizing and rewarding the, employees when they're doing good things. You're right. I think that's often, it's so overlooked. And I think it's a byproduct of that. What happens is, if you're really emphasizing it, those people then start to bring up the other ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Have you noticed that before? It's the more you really, give them the opportunity to shine, they become the leaders in your organization, and they shine for other people. They're an example, and they feel good, so they're able to kind of bring the others along. And so I think you're spending less of your time focusing on problems, for sure. But
Yeah. Excellent.
what about? Tell me a little bit about. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit before we wrap up this interview, which is, I'm thinking now, for the entrepreneur, more of an, we've talked a lot about companies, but for the entrepreneur that's got maybe a smaller team, but a growing team. And the entrepreneur especially has, like you said, so many balls in the air. What's your advice to them? How do you keep what's important, and put the right kind of energy into your people in that situation?
Yeah, well, I'm doing it now. So we're 4 years into a startup, manufacturing business, not a small, not small visions, big visions. So we have a manufacturing plant. We had to build from scratch. We had to build offices. We had to design and build our products from the ground up. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned through this process is you got to pick the right team, because when you're building a small team like this, where you are, for me at least, I'm competing against $40-100 billion companies, right? And I'm my small business, right? So when my first 10 employees had to be a SEAL team, right? I was going up against a land army, right? So I had to have the absolute best, and I look at them like a SEAL team. I had to have people that were skilled in one particular area, but had a lot of other skills as well, and that they were experienced, that wide skill set, and also they had demonstrated persistent. I look for people that had that had a mindset of getting things done and being persistent especially under difficult circumstances, because a startup is it's a long process, right? Getting a brand new brand out there, getting people excited about what you're trying to do, and building a reputation in the marketplace takes time, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. And there are some days where you don't get orders, and there's some days when you wonder if you're going to make it. So you got to find people that are really skilled in what they do, and that they're they've demonstrated what Angela Duckworth calls grit. They've got the ability to overcome difficult obstacles. And so I fortunately have picked a good team. I got a really good team that came to me, and these guys have demonstrated day after day that this group of initial 10 employees could outmaneuver the big land armies, my competitors, day after day, and it's just fun to watch it. And they get excited when they outmaneuver the competition. We just last Friday we won a very large, significant order against a very major competitor on Friday, and man, it was just awesome. So my little company just outmaneuvered a $40 billion company, and we won the order, and from a very large customer in Tennessee. And it was just, man, that's a great feeling. So it was good for them too. They felt the win as well. So I think part of it is picking your people is really important. And if you make a mistake, fix it. Like if you've hired the wrong person, that's okay, but resolve it. That person may not be a good fit for a startup. Startups are difficult. And so, not everybody's built for that. Some people want to have everything established and they just sort of follow the rules, like in a big company. But in a small company, you got to create the rules. So you have to find the right type of people that'll work well in that environment. And if you make a mistake with hiring, that's okay, but you need to move on. So
it's I absolutely love that example of needing a SEAL team. Yeah, no, I think it's a great way to look at it. Just one thing before I let you go, you mentioned about picking people with grit. Obviously, hiring could be a topic of its own interview. So without getting into too much detail, what's one way that you would sort of screen for finding people with this element of grit?
So I always ask that question, like how have they overcome some adversity in their lives? So I always want to know their story of where they may have overcome adversity. The other side of it is you can tell by their resume a lot of times. So I'm looking for possibly the military veteran who served 2 tours in Iraq. Okay, well that's somebody who's been through some stuff. So I want to know, that's it. That's good. Maybe the guy that came up from the shop floor that worked 8 years to get his bachelor's degree, going at nights while he worked as a team leader on the manufacturing shop floor. That guy might be kind of interesting to talk to. So the guy that worked 2 jobs as he was putting himself through college, doing construction work, or I want to know your story, and show me in your story where you've overcome something significant in your life. And that to me is all right. That tells me you've got a little bit of grit, and I want to know why you persisted through that tough time, and what drove you to be a persistent kind of personality. And I'll tell you, maybe it comes from me, because a lot of people look at my resume and they say, well, you must be a smart guy, right? Because I'm a former nuclear engineer, right? I mean, with the Navy, and that's got to mean something for something. And I always tell people that no, I'm not smart at all. One thing I've done and been over my life is I've been persistent through whatever adversity that a challenge that I've had to overcome. And so I actually look for people that have that similar characteristic, because I think that's one of the most powerful tools that we can have. Someone that is resilient and won't quit when the going gets tough. And that's what I'm looking for in employees.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, I think this has all been really useful, John. So, I can't imagine anyone, having listened to this interview wouldn't, have at least a few takeaways that they could start implementing, right away in their business to better engage their people. And bottom line is, better engage your people, get better results. But obviously we're going to suggest people, grab a copy of John's book. I Have the Watch, available on your website, available on Amazon too, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, just go to ihavethewatch.com, and you'll see links to how to buy it. It's available on Amazon, Audible. It's a Kindle book as well. But ihavethewatch.com, which is the title of the book. You go there, and that'll give you all your links to how to purchase it. And I guess if you buy it from the website, I do autograph copies on the website. So.
Sounds good. So then if people wanted to get in contact with you for whatever reason, how would they do that?
So it's just John S.
Yep.
It's johnsrennie.com, and that's how you get to my website. And there's all the links to get a hold of me, and we go from there. Yeah.
So I should point out 2 things: that it's John, Jon, and Rennie, IE.
Thank you. I appreciate that. However, if you put JOHN, it would still go to my website. So
try that too. Oh, that's a clever thing to do. Yeah.
Just in case, right? So, hey, entrepreneurs out there, if you have a weird spelling in your name or something, buy a bunch of domains so they'll always go to your proper domain.
There you go. Extra tips, extra value today. Well, right. Thanks very much, John. I really appreciate your time today. And I think this has been absolutely fantastic. So you take care over there. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Connor. Appreciate it. Thank you.